Well, good morning. I'm going to speak loudly so I know the folks out here can hopefully hear me as well. My name is Paul Buffington. I'm with Atlassian, and I am just super excited to be here. It's, I think, my third or fourth time at SITS. I love being here for the conversations, the chance to have with customers. I'm a principal solutioneer with Atlassian out of our U.S. office. I live outside of Portland, Oregon, and my focus is anything and everything IT, inside and also out to service management teams. I spent over 15 years in the business of consulting of many of the different traditional solutions, and now I've been within Atlassian 3 years. And I'm really super excited to share with you some of the insights that I work with customers on a daily basis. So Atlassian is very unique in the way that we help our enterprise customers. But we have a very unique approach to sales and guiding them through the process they standardize on Atlassian. And so what I want to talk about is incident management. Out of all of the ITSM processes that an IT team has to work with and get right, it comes down to incident management. So a lot of things that I have learned from customers around the world have gone into this, and also even a white paper we've written, and some of them come from our internal teams. Now, I don't know how many are familiar with Atlassian. How many in here currently have at least an Atlassian product? Jira, Confluence, Jira Service Desk. Okay, that's good. So there's some familiarity. But I want to introduce you to kind of Atlassian. And one thing is Atlassians around the globe get up to do their job on a daily basis. We have a core mission, and that is to unleash the potential in every team. We think about what is a team doing, what kind of work they're doing, and being able to give them the tools and the capability to do it better. And so there's a lot of science and innovation. One of the things I love about Atlassian, every quarter we do a innovation day, 24 hours. We call it Ship It, where we get a chance to work on projects we want to work on, helping the company or going back into the product. There's a lot of things that are actually shipped inside of that. And so this culture of innovation goes right into what we're going to kind of talk about in ITSM. Many of you that raise your hands, I really appreciate it. We have over 100,000 teams out there, in large to small companies, doing different types of things, whether it's software, IT, or business teams. And so what I want to focus on for IT teams are three areas. What they do for the people in the teams, the process and what they do, and then finally the technology. Now, oftentimes when we talk about something, we always want to focus on the technology. But when it comes to incident management, I really want to talk about these other capabilities. They're very, very important. And so I'm going to come back to the Atlassian Team Playbook. Anyone can have those. You don't have to be an Atlassian customer. I'm going to talk about how valuable those are. But also I'm going to factor in these other capabilities as well. So I was just thinking about this on the way to here. We are in a services first world. There's so many services that we depend upon as consumers, Uber or different types of apps. But this is so true for non-traditional type of digital businesses. I was just with a customer out of Atlanta recently. They deliver cement to manufacture or to build sites. They have digitized all of their capability. What you would think more pen and paper, calculate all of that, it's now turned into digital services. So if you're a contractor, you need to order a load of cement, you have a service you're going to engage with so you can get the proper amount delivered. Those are just small examples in a services first world. And if these services go down, they have a direct impact on the business. How many are impacted by the Visa outage this last week? I saw here in the UK. I was over in Amsterdam. I mean, that was a pretty major outage for Visa. And so these can be very, very small or very, very large. What I want to focus on with you today is the larger outages. Now, what's impacting that is DevOps. Many of you probably are in companies that are going through the process of transitioning from Agile to DevOps. This is a game changer for many, and it is a journey, and it's something that we work with a lot of customers on as they make this transition. Well, what's happening here is the development piece is coming along, but how do IT teams keep up to this? And one thing that we did in a survey last year we were looking at is there's a lot of Agile adaptation starting to come into IT teams. The three factors we found: they're looking at more flexible ways of working. Sometimes it's around the technology, but it's also around their process and the way the teams interact. That means that they can take on, because most of what IT does, what is it? It's unplanned work, right? So it's coming up. How can then I increase that velocity to be able to do that? And ultimately, instead of being just a cost center hidden away in the business, I'm going to have more value to the business. And so these different processes that I think about and work with customers on are always a key part of that. And so when I thought about speaking at SITS and I was going to submit a paper, there were many topics I wanted to talk about. but it came back to this one. I work with a lot of IT operations teams, and I've some that really, really struggled and trying to go from very reactive to delivering a great service to their organization. And so that's what I want to share with you today. 5 tips in this area. Now, a couple of things. This is X Matters. This is last year. 52% of companies have a major incident team. It's coming up. I went back in their previous surveys. It's good. That's still pretty low. If you have critical business services, there should be a team that's dedicated to that, maybe across products. And then also the 44% of the staff that are dedicated there versus pulling staff from different directions. It's a really good survey to read from them. I've worked with that vendor a lot because they've integrated back in my days of consulting, and still today I come across them. So let's look at the effective teams and incident management. Now, the 5 tips that I want to leave with you today, and that's my whole goal. I'm not going to talk about product. You might see some highlights, but I want you to be able to take away something that you can take back, maybe 2 or 3 things, and talk to your team and say, how can we do this to improve this? Because that's what it is. It's not something go back and make a grand change of the things. It's small incremental experiments and changes that allow you to see those improvements over time. So we're going to focus on the people and the team. That's where it has to start for this. We just can't solve it from a tool standpoint. And then also, what is my major game plan for a major outage? We need to have something in place, because when there's bells and whistles going off and there's fires, that's not the time to figure it out. Communication is key. If I do not communicate effectively, clearly, and frequently, I am going to be behind the game in this, and also possibly impact my business or even my customers. We also want to build good incident response capability. This is where the tactical will come in around our teams. What fits for your teams? And that's one thing I've really seen is in ITSM space today, I'm seeing a lot of teams really bring in tools. It's not the larger modules. They're going to come in and bring the tools in that are really fit for them. They might have 5 or 6 different tools for incident response they're going to work with. So how do they use those? So we'll talk about open work environments, collaboration, ChatOps, and automation. And then finally, something that's so important that I would say, well, we have stats on this, that a lot of teams don't invest in post-incident reviews. And I want to talk about the value of that as well. So let's get started. I start with the people, the teams. It's often easy to forget this, but we need to focus on the people that are doing the job. It can be a very IT operations. How many work in IT operations? Okay, good. I'm talking to the right audience. You know the frustrations of that day-to-day job sometimes. And so what can be done to invest in those people to build stronger teams, to build better, stronger understanding across teams? And that's where the challenge is. And I'll talk about that in a couple of seconds here. So 3 things I want to talk about, but I want to leave you with something very practical that you could go back and put into place. Well, first of all, they're very diverse backgrounds, because oftentimes if you step into IT operations, it's not your first job in IT. You've come from some other experience. You've brought experiences with me. So it's oftentimes, what can I learn from those perspectives and experiences? One thing I'm starting to see is a lot of IT ops folks have development backgrounds. They've lived on the other side. And so that's a key part of it. What can I learn from them? I think this is the other thing. Do you today invest in collaboration and in the culture around that and innovation? Meaning, do I take a certain percentage of my time in the month, a quarter, and allow someone from the team to go and do research, work on a special project that helps them improve their capability? It's almost like 10 or 20% time. So I've seen this more and more of the organizations I work with. I was just talking to a customer out of the Midwest. They now allow their employees in the IT ops teams. It used to be a knock. They've separated them out. They used to get to use 10% time that, okay, I'm working on a special scripting tool that's going to allow me to do this better, or allow the team, or they might educate the rest of the team on what they're learning. This is so key. So if you go back, maybe you're a manager, or you're talking to your management team, is figuring out what can we do here, because this is where the learning will happen. This is where the innovation will come for improving the process. The other one, and I've been on a 3 a.m. call, and it used to be a phone bridge, and it still is sometimes today. And there's that, well, it's dev's fault. They're the ones that ship the bad code. And then dev says ops, they can't get their way outside of the box because they don't understand what's going on in this. And there's this blaming that goes on back and forth. And why is that? Because sometimes we're in separate organizations. But how can we build empathy? And it's just a matter of sitting down and having maybe lunch with someone. One friend of mine, they do a lunch and learn between the development teams and operations. Because the way they're structured is a little bit different, but they bring them together through a lunch and learn. They sit down, have lunch. Hey, what's going on your side? What's going on mine? That builds empathy instead of, you're over in that camp and that's on the wall. I'm going to point fingers at you. Now, these are all great, right? I see a lot of your head shaking, yes, but I want to give you something practical. Atlassian has a team. It was out of Sydney, but now they're also in the U.S. that is focused on studying the sciences of teams. We want to work on what we deliver for technology that allows them to do their job better, but how do they function? What are the challenges? And so what we've developed, they released 2 years ago, I believe, it's what we call a playbook. And a playbook, I'm going to show you the first one. There's many of them up. There's ones for software teams, for development. We have playbooks for operations teams or service teams. It's a health monitor. I just did one 4 weeks ago within my team. This allows me to go ahead and, in a very safe way, be able to assess and openly discuss how are we doing, where are we at. It's a health check, and it's a way to, at the end of this, in a very short amount of time, be able to go identify, well, let's work on these one or two things. What Atlassian has done, and anyone you don't have to use Atlassian tools. You can come to our website, grab the health monitors, the plays, and implement them in your team. I'm part of that in being able to help my team understand where is the friction points that I can work on today. What can I do to improve and then go forward? And there's all kinds of additional aspect here. I don't have time, but take a few minutes to take a look at that because that's the people part that you really can, it will help you. All right, so we need to establish a game plan because if something goes bad, or bump in the night, and it will, we can't figure it out then. It's a Coast Guard helicopter. Back in 2000, I left the Coast Guard. I used to actually fly around the back here and as doing rescues. I did a 180 into the technology space, but I love that job. One of the things about that I carry forward with me is we train, and we train, and we train. So that way, when we got into a situation that we didn't anticipate, you knew exactly what you were going to do. I use this example today because I don't see this often in operations. What is my plan? Have I trained for it? Have I gone through scenarios? I want to talk about them. I'm just going to use that example a little bit. So here's a couple of things that I would say that if you do not have a blueprint today, if you go back and ask your IT operations team, first of all, clearly define what is a major incident. Is it something that's going on internally that employees might report? Is it critical to what they do? Does it touch a business service? There is a threshold here for major incident. SEB 1, SEB 2. There are other incidents that are just as important that IT can work on, but what is that threshold? Define what those are. And then establish workflows dedicated for that. A lot of the ITSM tools have that today, others don't. I see a lot within Jira, they'll go off and define a major outage workflow for IT operations team. So do you have something like that today that defines that workflow? That is going to be different and also bring in different team members from different departments. Also, team of teams. This is going to reach across potential multiple teams. What are the best resources that you have and identify them? Establish your communications plan. We'll talk more about this in a few minutes. That's so critical. Finally, documenting your process, but not your process that what's the flow, but how will I communicate? How will I collaborate? And then once this is documented in a collaborative space, set a review date on it. Once a quarter, at least once every year, half year, go through and review these plans because it will change over time as your services evolve, as your technology evolves. Remember I said about the training that we did all the time in the Coast Guard? Run simulation drills. I was talking to a customer out of New York recently that they do a simulation drill. They don't go and put it into the system, and they want to in some ways from scripting, but they just walk through, okay, this outage has come in. What are we going to do? Where are you going to go check? Because if I'm in IT operations and I'm responsible for 10 different major services, and if one of them hasn't gone down for 30 days, there is no way I'm going to remember everything that is involved in that. So I want to make sure of that. And then finally, conduct post-incident reviews. Now, what is the post-incident review? We'll talk about a little bit later on. It's not 5 fields on your form that you close out the incident and you're done. We'll talk about what it is really comprehensive and why that's valuable. We've all heard of continual service improvement. This is where problem and incident really start to come together in value. And I've seen this in some customers that have merged the two of those to deliver the greatest value back to the services that they're delivering. So it's hard to see on here. I apologize, but what this is this is for Atlassians. It was published in a blog, and as a part of our blueprint, we've published our core principles as an IT operations team. So I'll give you a couple highlights. We have a very balanced service monitoring. We don't bring everything in. In fact, they actually work out of ChatOps. I'll talk about that in a few minutes. The other thing is the team owns the service. That's the key thing right there. Service owner is embedded, so we have many different services within Atlassian, but they own it and they work together as a team. So it's very much a team approach. They also realize all kinds of things can happen, but the customers don't really care about that. They just want their service back up, so return as quickly as possible. And the last two, learning. Learning isn't about pointing fingers. Learning is about, all right, something happened here. Maybe we pushed the wrong code, or wrong configuration. Fine. What can we learn from it? Because culture of blame has been around a long time in IT. But a part of that shift in the culture and the team playbooks is how can we get to the point where I want to learn from it? Yeah, granted, a mistake was made, but a lot of benefits can come out of this. It might unlock the next improvement on that service. And then finally, the root cause. And I'll talk about post-incident reviews. These are values that are now published in the Atlassian playbook incident response blueprint. So let's talk about communications. Outages happen, and Sev1's going on. How am I going to communicate? Well, what do we do most of the time? We send an email, and that's good. I think it's a part of the plan, but just sending an email is not going to work. So there's a lot of tools and technology around for great collaboration, but really a great predictor of the success is how well can they communicate. And part of the plan, if they are struggling, is they don't have a plan to communicate, and they don't have a way to centrally communicate. What we've found in high-performing teams is that they have a way to display a real-time status of service, and they're able to proactively communicate their services outages. And it's not really large, heavy tools that took me months to deploy. These are lightweight ways. So website, being able to distribute that out, to get that out. It may very well, it connects back to your infrastructure, your CIs and your CMDB. It's important in that way. But this needs to be easy for these teams to communicate. So something like this, if I'm able to come up, publish it in, someone can consume this and come through and get the updates for external. Now, what do I mean by your customer? It could be outside of your company. You have critical services that someone is subscribing to. So now they know, instead of flooding you with tickets, oh, this service is down, and I'm proactively communicating. What happens here is you have greater trust with your customers. And it's the same way inside. I've seen many companies inside with all of their critical services will be communicated through a centralized status page that they can now let employees know, hey, this service is down for maintenance, or we have an outage. They're on the same page. They're not going to flood you with calls and emails. And the other part is I can bring my internal communications for the team to look at as well. So if this is an externally facing service, think about how I communicate with my customers, but I want to communicate with internal stakeholders too. Can you do it in one place? So it's the key of bringing those together. So when it comes to communication best practices, who cares about it? As I said, it's your customer. And if you don't do that right, you actually put your team and IT in a bad light, and oftentimes very, very frustrated. If it's external, they may very well leave your service. And that's why this aspect of incident has grown over time, and it's an important aspect to focus on. It's also preparing for incident communication. It's something you don't figure out once it happens. It's a part of that plan we talked about a few minutes ago. Inside of that blueprint is a whole section on how will I communicate, who will start to initiate the communication, what methods will we use. So I want to go ahead and define all of that and prepare for it. Also going back through when I communicate, what's a Sev 1, so it's back, what qualifies as an incident, and that will help me define further the severity and what I'm going to communicate around that. These are ideally connected back to key metrics that you are majoring as an IT organization. So, as far as communication goes, because we as consumers today, we have many ways that we want to consume it. So do you have a centralized page that you can communicate around it? Do you have a status page? Can you embed it somewhere? Obviously, email is not going to go away, so that's going to be one. But are there ways that they're going to subscribe? A couple of our customers in the Bay Area I've talked to, they use Twitter. And it's a way that they have critical services out there. These are subscription-based services underlying that they communicate what's going on with their services in the consumer side. Internally, it's probably more of the top couple right there in the list. But you need multiple ways of communicating. Also, is this status page, where are you hosting it? Is it in your inside infrastructure? If that goes down, are you going to lose your communication? So do you host it somewhere outside of your organization? And that's the other key part. The last two things, set up incident communication templates. There's no way that if you're in a Sev 1 and you've got an hour to get up and respond, that you're going to type all of this out. Take the time to build those templates. The other part is manage it like a pro. So there's really three parts. What's your first contact during the initial few minutes of the outage? So what's first contact? How are you going to perform updates out to the stakeholders? How often will you? What I've seen with one customer recently is they end the communication, you will see the next update in such and such time, depending on severity. And then finally, have a conclusion. You may very well communicate what was the postmortem, what did we learn? I don't know if you follow Amazon and what they communicate. They communicate very openly on AWS. If they have an outage, they will communicate what they discovered, what they learned. Now, are they telling us everything? No. There's enough as a consumer of their services. I'm satisfied. I'm actually a happier customer because of that. And so these are key aspects in the communication around incident management. Keep me honest here. Trying to keep track of time. Okay. 4 things. Open work, collaboration, and ChatOps and automation. So when we're working on mean time to resolution, these are the 4 I picked out. There's many more, but a couple of things that are really important. So if I'm taking a team to bring them together and be able to help them work better together, the things that I need to think on and focus about are the incident itself, what information's in there, open collaboration, and I'll explain what I mean by that in a minute, the communication channel, which we just talked about very well, live incident ChatOps, which probably many of you have today, and then finally, live incident documentation, which you may or may not have. So, first of all, open work environment. Atlassian is really a proponent of open work. If I have open work, if I have an issue going on, I can look and see what's going on the dev side. I can know what their last release is. I know what IT operations plan is. I can go anywhere in the company and find ways to find. I'm meeting more and more companies. Now, there are areas, security, HR, that they may very well lock down, but there are other aspects that I can open up to improve the way we work. Even within just IT operations, can we open it up to where I can go through and find anything very easily? So one of the things that I have followed a trend is called Runbooks. Runbooks are a fast troubleshooting guide for IT teams. So we've had them around there, Word docs, Excel. Bring them into a collaborative space where you can now review them, document them, and then reference them during your outage. This is just one example that I've seen used by very effective IT operations teams. ChatOps. How many are using ChatOps today? Okay. A few. So I come from phone bridges, 3 a.m. phone calls, probably do a lot of those. Whatever tools you have today in-house, there are many great chat tools out there. Atlassian, we just released a new one that I think is really good because the way it does things in the conversation we don't find. But whatever it is, corporate standard, I've seen just teams bring it in for themselves. Get a chat tool in. Place it in the middle of the outage conversation. Leverage the team knowledge in real time. Who's away at lunch getting a coffee or something like that I need to ask them a question? collaborate in real time. Our IT operations team in Sydney, they don't spend time in front of their desk inside the tool. They're moving around. All of their notifications are coming into the chat client. They're using Stride. And as they find that, they see something from Datadog. This suspect, I'm going to launch into an incident. I now have a hot incident going on, step one, because they can get this information in real time. And they've narrowed it down because a lot of the tools can help us get rid of the noise. So the idea here is to be able to get the chat client in so you can bring the right people in. I create a dedicated room for this major outage. I now can swarm around this incident in a better way than I could ever do previously with just phone bridges and the other ways that we've done it previously. It is really, truly a game changer. If you don't have that today, I would highly recommend that. The other thing is a collaboration wiki. And there's many ways to do this, but as the incident is happening, you can't just do it in chat. Inside the incident, you should be capturing it, but I want to put it in a place where I can collaborate in real time. Why is that? Because it'll go to the post-incident review later on. So I'm able to just start capturing, including buying pizza for the team that's working hard at 3 a.m., but I can capture the things that I'm doing. This is key insights into my incident timeline. So this goes with the ChatOps. Just trying to keep track of time here. Keep me honest. Okay, we're good? All right. So these two together are really, really important to bring them together. As far as ChatOps, open work, and collaboration. Now let's talk about automation. When we think about automation, one of the areas that we focus on, and this is an important one, is how can I take automation, whatever your capability is, and make this more intelligent to me without flooding me with noise. And a lot of these tools today do that. But what if I got something from one of those that I need to act on in a way that bring two separate teams together, or elevate the severity from severity 2 to severity 1? Automation is the area that we're seeing take off the most, and there's a lot of ways to do this. Automation I/O, I just actually worked on a project with a customer that was implementing, and they're using it outside as well as with our tools to do that. Your CMDB, there's a lot of valuable information, but what can I use for automation to bring these together in a way that's informative? Now, this is where we normally focus, right? Here's where I would start with automation. Think about the little things that your team does. Like, okay, this step one incident happening, and it's telling me I'm the first agent on call. And I haven't seen this in 30 days. My runbook is out there, my playbook is out there. Give me, through an automation, just a quick summary. Here's the things you need to do first, as first touch agent. So these types of little things add up to where it is really, really helpful in the end. And ultimately what you're doing is, because I had in part of that automation, well, I took that from a customer example, they're bringing in the appropriate dev team because they know the service. The CMDB was reported what the service is. Automation does a lookup, who's my availability, and they're bringing these teams together in the same ticket. And so with this, I can use automation to start to combine or bring these teams together. So this is kind of high level, but it was just think about today, and I would always start with what are the little things you can do instead of tackling all of that monitoring and trying to automate it from end to end. DevOps is very much about this. Experiment, do little sections at a time, and improve upon it. All right. So post-incident reviews. This is something that's so very important and oftentimes is forgotten. And that's why I want to spend the last part of my talk on this. So we have an incident timeline that's flowing hopefully in an hour or two for a major outage. And so that information is being captured. Remember back in the live collaboration document, I've captured some critical information. There's some information in the incident. How can I take and learn from this? Well, what I want to do is take that incident timeline and all of the details of it and bring it into a place where I can collaborate as a team. I can do a true post-incident review and learn from it. The reason why we advocate for this is because we have found, and this is actually other research to this, 70% of what has happened in a step 1 or step 2 is forgotten. Why is that? It's because I put it in 5 fields. I marked it as completed. It's live, right? Dusted, done, moving on, right? You just left on that incident ticket 1 to 2 really key insights that may prevent this from the future, or improve that service in the future. And so what you want to do is you want to unlock that. Now, why is that? Well, it's back to the culture. Maybe there's the blame thing going on, and we're afraid of that. This is one way that you can actually break down that barrier. Go ahead and start a post-incident review that helps you to learn from it. So what you want to do is take away that you can track issues and tasks related to this, so move them in a way that out of that document, I now know these, I'm going to give you a task. I need you to go check with that vendor around this, this is problem management. I've worked with so many ITSM implementations. Problem management is a later process to be implemented, if it ever is implemented. Why is that? Because I don't have the team. It's a separate tool. It's a separate module. I am a big advocate from a lean perspective. Let's start collapsing those. Because if I can bring problem management capabilities in here at the end of a major incident, and problem talks about this. I now have the things that I want to investigate. What's the known error here that I could potentially get fixed and addressed? Out of this, because I do these in some sort of tracking, and this happens with Atlassian and several customers I've seen this, they turn these into valuable reports within IT operations. Okay, you ran how many PIRs last month? How many tasks were in there? How many are completed? How many? Some don't get done. They don't have time. But as a manager, as a director, I see the value my team is delivering back to the organization. And ultimately, this meeting agenda, these action items, allow me to publish and share with stakeholders. This is where IT starts to communicate back to the business. Here's what we're doing. Here's how we're improving. And so this is really, really key in this, in that it's not just locked inside of IT, these learnings. This is sharing this out with the organization. So what are the keys? I'll leave this up here for a few minutes. First of all, it's around the culture. It goes back to the people again. We need to get past looking to blame others, and instead focus on what's the understanding. Yeah, accidents happen. In fact, the more we move, faster we move in the digital world, the more mistakes that will happen. But we're setting up frameworks that allow us to, capture that and maybe get ahead of it. So we want to know that yes, it's going to happen. So let's learn from it, and we're better in the long run. So first of all, this is kind of a really key part. You want a repeatable PIR flow. So if your current tool doesn't support it today, I've seen teams will just build just that in Jira, or whatever tool it is that you have, build something that is simple and is repeatable, that you can track your tasks. It's linked back to your incident. The master record of that outage is in your source of record from your service incident. Wherever this is, might be somewhere else, you can link back to it. Link to all the items created. Your collaboration page, where you had all your notes, that now flows into that document. Or in one case, a customer has actually made them all in one inclusive. And then just go through your knowledge base, your troubleshooting. This is where your known errors are going to be published out of. They're really critical for this team. Your Runbooks that you have, those, why we update those probably on at least a monthly basis. We do in Atlassian, a couple other customers I've talked to, because these learnings are updating in there. Okay, when you have this storage issue, here are the top things that you know about. Let's look at these, because you may have an external vendor. And then, what kind of preventive actions that we can do to go through this last part? It's about service quality. We've heard about continuous service improvement. I was just talking to Charlie Batts from Forrester, and he's written some great stuff on this. This is really a key aspect of IT, and he's super excited about this. Is how can we take the components of problem management and bring this in, because this is where you deliver value back to the business. If I brought back to the business in a quarter 5 improvements on critical services, that's a pretty significant delivery. What is that financially back to the business? That could be very large, significant financial improvement there as well. So there's a lot more on this. Make sure we're doing on time. Good. I would love to talk more about it, but I want to get to some questions. So let me summarize. Hopefully you've seen some things that you can maybe take away. 1 to 2 things that are ideas that you could go back and consider. So I would look at, first of all, the people in the team. Take a look at the playbooks. Download them, look at them, try them out with one of your teams. It may very well open up a way that you can work towards improvement around key aspects that go to your capability. Figure out your major response game plan. If you don't own it, go back to the team, say, hey, what do we got? Where's our blueprint? Can we work on this together? How are we communicating today? Can we move beyond just email? Is there some other way that we can get out there? Are we still getting flooded with incidents? Can we get up to where we have a centralized way of communicating, such as a centralized status page? And then figure out what are the key capabilities around which you want to build for your team. Because at the end of the day, it isn't a very large, gigantic solution that you drop in that's going to do everything. It's a lot of key aspects for that team that will fit around them the way that they work. If they're mobile, moving around, ChatOps. So how can I get ChatOps into what they're doing? How can I open up the work environment with collaborative type wikis? Where am I going to implement automation in there in little tiny ways that I see the longer improvement over time? And then finally, invest in post-incident reviews. I cannot emphasize that one enough. This one right here would be a very significant return. Just start small, be able to go ahead and learn from it and improve it over time. And maybe a year from now, after you've implemented, you could look back and say, yeah, these are the things we were able to improve because of this process. So I want to just mention to you, this last year, thanks to the team at Atlassian, I've been thinking about this the last 3 years. I spent 15 years in the ITSM space more traditionally. It's really kind of unlocked my thinking and the way that Lean and Agile start to come in, the way that IT is crossing over into a DevOps world. We've published a lot of these ideas in here. They're ideas to give you, to show how our products are used, but really just that you can go back and apply within your teams. You can download it from there. You can come by the booth and talk to us. I'd love to share more with you about it because there's a lot more of the other processes in there. I just took out the incident management portion, and there's a lot more in depth than what we talked about. So with that, I think we got a few minutes for Q&A here. It looks like we're about 5-7 minutes. So I'm going to kind of move around. Let's see. Are there any questions at this point? Is this helpful information? I see. Oh, very good. I'm all right. I feel successful there. Okay, question in the back. I'm going to watch the back. So here's a question.